Max. Welcome. I'm happy that we are talking again.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. As I told you, you look younger.
Thank you.
So you are part of a delegation. I want to know, what is the purpose of the delegation?
The purpose of the delegation is to show that we will not let our allies in this region alone, that we continue to work together with the region, with the government here, but also with the civil society, and that we care a lot about specific topics that are very close to our heart. Like 10 years after the genocide on the Yazidi people, we advocate for them.
So far, how many days have you been here? I think 2?
I arrived just yesterday.
You arrived yesterday. So this is the second day. And you had many meetings. So I want to know about the result so far. How is it?
So the result is that everyone wants the German engagement to continue, and we really want to continue our engagement in several areas. And for me personally, it's also very important that we continue our engagement with our military presence here in the Kurdistan region. It's very important to support our allies, to educate Peshmerga, to also push for the reform of Peshmerga. But we also want to see some movements from the government here in the region, like a way that is strengthening really the media and press freedom, to better human rights conditions also in the region, and to really give 100% every day to find a solution for the Sinjar region so that the Yazidi people can return.
You talked about human rights. I know that human rights is part of one of the topics that this delegation is focusing on. What is your assessment regarding, considering all your meetings, especially today in Erbil, with different political parties, and maybe you will also next days you will meet other media and NGOs too. How do you see human rights?
So first of all, let me say that we see a better human rights situation in this region, like in all over Iraq, and that is really a good sign. But we want to also see that journalists can work free, and we want to see free elections, and human rights also includes access to infrastructure such as health, such as work, and we want to see opportunities, especially for young people in this region, to have a good and decent life here.
This delegation, so your visits will be within Kurdistan region, or you have other plans to go to other areas too?
We will visit some other areas in central Iraq also.
In central Iraq. So the focus is not only the Kurdistan region.
My personal focus is the Kurdistan region, and it's very important for me to be here present in the region and to show the region that we will not let them alone. But if you want to understand the fight against ISIS, and also the brave fight against ISIS that Peshmerga fought, you also have to go into central Iraq area, because many of these fightings have happened there.
Right. The Kurdistan region of Iraq's relation with Germany, has it remained consistent, or there are new developments in this relation?
So the relation between Germany and the Kurdistan region is really a relation by heart. We have in Germany the biggest Yazidi diaspora in the entire world. We also have one of the biggest Kurdish diasporas in the entire world. So we have many people-to-people connections. We have many politicians here in Erbil who studied for a while in Germany, for example, and returned to make politics here and becoming lawmakers, for example. So we have many of these connections that strengthen our relations. And also we see that many people here in the region share our values when it comes to human rights, for example. That is good.
The German foreign minister is now from the Green Party, your political party. I want to know, what have you done as Green Party to even develop more the relation between Erbil and Berlin even more?
So we have so many concrete projects here in the region. In every aspect of working together, like education. When I think about the University of Duhok, we have such a good education for psychologists at the Duhok University, for example. We have so many projects in working together to tackling climate crisis and creating new jobs. We have projects that contribute to the civil society. And of course, we also have projects which contribute to the victims of ISIS and to give them a perspective, like the Back to Life project and many IDP camps in Duhok.
You talked about the Yazidis. The German parliament, the Bundestag, defined the 2014 attack on the Yazidis as a genocide, and you personally had a very critical role in that legislation. So, what will Germany do for the Yazidis in Germany and also in the Kurdistan region of Iraq?
So in Germany, we try to help them to live their culture and religion in dignity and in freedom. We also try in Germany to help especially young Yazidis to reform their religion in a way so that women can live free, that they can choose freely who they want to marry or not marry. And here in the region, we want to advocate for the Yazidis because we see that many states in the region and many politicians use Yazidis for their own political reasons and aspects, like a playground. And we have the biggest Yazidi diaspora as German citizens. So it's also a national topic for us that they are safe and that they have a future here in the region. And of course, we want to give them a future in Germany. And that is why I'm strongly advocating against deportation that are coming from our social democratic interior minister, Nancy Faeser. But we also want to see a real future for the Yazidi people here in this region and in Sinjar, where their home is. And that is why we are advocating towards everyone that they have to fulfill their obligations from the Sinjar agreement and that they have to do everything they can and that is in their power to create peace there.
How do you see Sinjar?
How I see it?
How do you see it? Of course, I know that you are aware of the situation there and you monitor the situation in Sinjar closely.
On a personal level, I'm sad to see that Sinjar is not safe and that Sinjar is not rebuilt. It's not possible for many Yazidis to return back to Sinjar because there is no infrastructure, there is no safety, there is no peace, because there is even not a perspective to find work and to economically live. And it is so sad to see that Yazidis, as victims of this terrible genocide from ISIS, still have to live in IDP camps that are tackled by the Iraqi government. And that brings me to my political perspective. I don't get how the Iraqi government can, on one side, announce that they want to close the IDP camps, while they don't fulfill their obligations from the Sinjar agreement on the other side. And I want to see a real movement there so that we can close the IDP camps one day, but with a perspective for the Yazidi survivors.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to Sinjar agreement and the fail to fulfill that agreement on the ground, who do you blame?
I don't blame anyone because I don't believe that blaming helps. But I see who has responsibilities a lot and who has not that much of responsibilities. And the most of the responsibilities from the Sinjar agreement rely to the central government of Iraq in Baghdad. There are also some responsibilities for the Kurdish regional government. And of course, there won't be peace in Sinjar as long as there are military operations from Turkey continuing to create a climate of instability.
You talked about Yazidis who are being used by other political parties here in Iraq. That concern is common very common here in Iraq and even Kurdistan region of Iraq. Do you have that concern too in Germany? As a member of the parliament who focus on the Yazidis?
So I don't have this because I'm a member of parliament since 2021, and I did not see any law passing our parliament anonymously, but the recognition of the genocide of the Yazidi people did.
I'm talking about Iraq, actually. I don't mean
parliament in Germany, and that's why I don't believe that this is a party political playground in our country.
No, I'm not talking about your country. I'm talking about Iraq, that Yazidis are being somehow used by other political parties. This concern is common in Iraq, and many people talk about this, that this community is being used or utilized somehow for political goals of other political parties or other ethnic groups. Do you have that concern too?
I share this concern.
Also about Yazidis, as you know, there are many Iraqis. I think it's about 30,000, something like that, asylum seekers who their application was rejected by the courts, different courts in Germany. Part of those number are Yazidis. How do you see that?
So when we make the recognition of the genocide passing the parliament, we said clear that Yazidis have to have a way to seek asylum in Germany. And now we see that some of them really got deported. It's not a theoretical debate. We talk about Yazidi babies who grew up in Germany, who know only German as a language, and they got deported to a village they don't know, to circumstances they don't know, back to a place where their parents are reminded of a genocide. And that is why I'm absolutely against deportations of Yazidi people. And this is in the responsibility of our interior minister in Germany. It's under the responsibility of the Social Democratic Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, and she has to act. She really has to act to stop this. She wants to get the number of her deportations higher and higher and higher. But while trying to get her numbers higher and higher, she really hits those who need our protection most. And this is not acceptable for me.
We talked to many Yazidis in Germany, and they are calling the government, the federal government in Germany, for negotiation about their cases. What can you do for them?
So what we try is to convince our federal government and also our state regional governments to make a deportation stop passing. That is one thing we should do. But there's also another thing that we can do as members of parliament. And what I learned from being a politician is that being a politician is not only pointing out the fingers to someone else. There is a thing that we could do as a parliament. We could pass an own law for Yazidis who seek asylum in Germany. And that's what we're trying to do. And we hope that our coalition partners, so the Social Democratic Party in Parliament and the Liberal Party in Parliament, will be convinced of that.
Soon, next October, the mandate from Bundestag for the German troops to stay in Iraq and the Kurdistan region of Iraq will end. Are you and your political party, the bloc in the parliament, Greens, are you in favor of extending that mandate for the German troops?
So, let me be honest. We are absolutely in favor of continuing our work here. And also our soldiers are. We really want to continue our work because our work here is extremely sensible. We bring stability to the region. We can work together and educate Peshmerga. And by the way, we as the entire world, we have to be thankful to Peshmerga that they defeat ISIS for all of us. But the question, if we are able to continue of our work here, is not only in our hands. We need a way of continuing our work. I hope we can continue our work with our military presence here, such as now, but we don't know it yet if this is possible because of the negotiations between Baghdad and the US.
So the negotiation is taking place now between Baghdad and the USA regarding ending the task of the international coalition against ISIS in Iraq. Germany is a very significant and main part of that international coalition. Is Germany aware about the content of that negotiation?
Germany is very aware of the importance of this negotiation, but not aware of every content of this negotiation, because this is a negotiation between Baghdad and the US, where Germany is very aware in what we asked the central government of Iraq and Baghdad to do. We asked this government to really take a decision that is even in their own interest to stable this region, to bring sovereignty to this region and the entire state, and to continue with our military presence here in the entire IS coalition.
So the presence, or let me put it this way, it relies on the result and the outcome of that negotiation between the USA and Iraq, whether the German troops will, or German presence in Iraq militarily will remain or not.
It relies of the international law. And from the perspective of the international law, we need an invitation from Baghdad to be present here.
But what does your evaluation says about the situation in Iraq? Do you think the situation in Iraq and the region is suitable for such a step to end the role of the international coalition?
I really beg the central government of Iraq that we don't have to stop our work here, because our work is extremely important to tackle ISIS. And of course, the military overall control of ISIS has gone, but ISIS is still a risk for security here in the region, in the Kurdistan region, in the whole Middle East, and in whole Iraq. And that is why our military presence is crucial for Iraq, and it is also crucial for the Kurdistan region. I know that many people here in this region really appreciate that we educate Peshmerga, that we work together with them, that we push for reform that unites Peshmerga. And they want to see us continuing here our work. And I want my soldiers to see here continuing their great work they do, especially because we want to show to the Kurdish people that we not let them alone, that we not let them alone after what happened in 2014 and 2015, and after what happened in the past decades. Just remember the genocide of Halabja. We really have to stand on the side of our Kurdish allies here in the region, and that is why I really hope that we find a solution that brings together international law and our engagement here.
Germany is also part of the Peshmerga plan, Peshmerga reform plan, and your troops here is doing a great job regarding this. They are putting lots of effort. But are you satisfied with the results? Because this plan to unite the Peshmerga forces and make it a national force away from political affiliation, actually, we don't see that yet. Do you have any concerns about that? Conducting this plan and creating this unified Peshmerga is taking too long.
You know, what's really interesting is that when I was in Iraq 2 years ago, everyone told me that Peshmerga should be united and everyone's giving 100% to unite Peshmerga. Or what we see today is that Peshmerga is not united. And it's good that all political main actors are willing to unite Peshmerga, but we really want to see results. We want to see really a united Peshmerga.
That you still don't see now.
Yeah, we still don't see it.
So in the Bundestag, you also have a role regarding monitoring human rights in Turkey. How do you see human rights in Turkey?
So I don't only have the role to monitor human rights in Turkey, I'm the chairman of the German-Turkish parliamentary group. What is really a big honor for me, especially in my age and especially being new in the parliament, because we say it's the second importantest group for parliamentary exchanges after the US parliamentary group. And we say that because we have so many people-to-people connections between Germany and Turkey. In my constituency, in the city of Bochum, Turkish is maybe the second biggest mother tongue for people and for newborn children. And that is so good. And that is why I also can understand a bit Turkish, because I grew up there. And when I think about Turkey, when I speak about Turkey, I do not only see a government or political actors. I see many people, and I see a brave civil society, and I see especially many young people who are willing to rebuild a good democracy, rebuild a strong rule of law. And it's sad to see that this rule of law in Turkey is under attack, for example, by not implementing decisions coming from the European Court of Human Rights. And it's sad to see that the Turkish military forces sometimes also hurt international law when it comes to their operations in Syria, for example, but also when it comes to operations in Iraq, for example. And that is one of many things that we have to discuss with Turkey.
Okay, how do you see the situation of the Kurds in Turkey?
How I see the situation of the Kurds in Turkey. So Kurds are a part of Turkey. They are citizens of Turkey. Istanbul is one of the biggest Kurdish cities in the world, by the way. There live so many Kurdish people, and no one would deny that Istanbul is a Kurdish city. Saying this, I believe that a democracy is as strong as a democracy treats also its minorities well. And the Kurds are a minority also of Turkey, and they are not treated very well in every aspect. Like, think about the political repressions against Selahattin Demirtas as the voice for the Kurdish question in Turkey. See that there is really not enough access to have lesson and education and also official procedures in their Kurdish mother language. And I think these are steps Turkey should take on. And I believe that the Turkish democracy really needs a new start of a peace process about the Kurdish question. There won't be peace in the region, and there won't be peace in Turkey without finding a solution for the Kurdish question, or without restarting a peace process. I think they should really do, and they could benefit from that as a whole country and as a country that is united in diversity.
But the current government in Turkey says that they have resolved the Kurdish issue in Turkey, and there's no more anything under the name Kurdish issue there. This is what the president said over and over during the last year. What's your view on that?
I believe that the Kurdish issue is not solved for them, because the Kurdish issue is one of the reasons why Selahattin Demirtas, as an oppositional politician, is still in prison. And the Kurdish issue is not solved as long as there is a military conflict between the YPG forces and the Turkish military forces in northern Syria. And this takes place every day, this conflict. And as long as this conflict continues, the issue and the question is not solved, and it has to be solved. It has to be solved with talks like this. It has to be solved at the table and not on the battleground with weapons.
Now the fight between Turkish military and the PKK is in Kurdistan region of Iraq, within the Iraq's international border. Turkey is a member of NATO. Germany is also a member of NATO. How do you see this operation?
I'm a politician from the Green Party, and the foreign minister is from my party, as you said. I see only one foreign minister from all NATO countries who said loud and clear in Turkey, in Istanbul, at a press meeting with the Turkish foreign minister, that the way the Turkish military forces act in Syria and Iraq is not allowed by international law. And that was a very strong statement, and that is our position. And we are not against a fight against terrorism, but we are against a military operation that threatens civilians, that killed civilians, and that destabilized a whole region and the home of the Yazidis, by the way.
You also monitor Iran.
Yes,
in
I'm
your
the
work. Yes.
rapporteur for the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe for Iran.
Yeah. There's a new president in Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. Do you think that we will see any change in Iran's foreign policy?
No, I don't believe that. I don't trust that government. I don't trust elections that are allowed by this so-called government of Iran. I think that this regime in Iran does not have the back of the majority of its people, and this regime of Iran has no goodwill in the region. Like, look to the terrible situations of people in Gaza, people suffering in Gaza every day. Men, women, and children who are innocent are dead. And who benefits from this suffering? The regime of Iran benefits from this suffering because many people are looking away from them. And that is why they financed the way towards this suffering. This regime in Iran does not want anything in the region besides of getting money and power for themselves. And that is a huge problem. And that is why we have to support the Iranian people and also the Kurdish people from Iran.
Bold statement from you.
Isn't it more brave from the Iranian people and also from the Kurdish people in Iran to go out on the streets against this regime?
Do you anticipate any move from the regime in Iran and the current government when it comes to the Kurdish issue, at least in the next few years?
I expect honestly nothing that is a good step for decent human beings from this regime.
Okay. If this is your position, what's your assessment when it comes to other European countries who are willing to start negotiation with Iran and somehow accept Iran as part of the international community? They think the best way to deal with Iran and resolve the issues internally and also regionally with Iran is to negotiate with Iran as any other state.
This is one of the most important questions because, as I mentioned, on the rapporteur for the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe for the situation in Iran, what I see and what really threatens me is that the strategy of the European Union and of NATO towards Iran is not common enough. We allow the regime of Iran to play with us, partly. Just look at the hostages that are held by this regime. There is not a common strategy coming from Europe about different national citizens from our states. And that is why we really need to find a common strategy, a common approach, and a common approach where we can advocate for our citizens held as hostages, and where we are able to act against this regime and in the sense of the majority of the brave people of Iran.
About Rojava, northeast Syria, the areas where the Kurds reside. How do you see the situation there, especially of human rights situation, freedom of media in the administration controlled by the PYD?
So the human rights situation there is not perfect, and maybe it's also far away from perfect. Looking to report from Human Rights Watch, from Amnesty International, the children, for example, were forced to serve in military forces. This is not acceptable from every perspective of human rights. But of course, in this region, you have to compare human rights situations to other regions, to other places, and comparing to the regions in Syria controlled by Assad or controlled by the allies of the Turkish military forces, so controlled by Islamist groups. The human rights situation in the Kurdish-controlled northern Syria region is better.
In your opinion, what should Germany and international community do to secure the rights of the Kurds in the future of Syria?
We have to find, first of all, a common approach towards Syria. We're reading the common European approach towards Syria, because if we look to Syria right now and what we did there, we failed with our goals, because one of our goals should be to secure also the Kurdish population of Syria. And I think one key for us is to work together with the Kurdish authorities in northern Syria. And we need to find a way that our Turkish NATO allies stop their military operations in Syria. That is especially important to protect the Kurdish minorities, because there are a lot of reports about human rights violations against Kurdish people coming from the allies of the Turkish military forces. And this is not acceptable. And that is maybe something we should mention to Turkey more steady and more loud.
How do you see efforts from different countries for normalizing relations with the Assad regime? Do you support that?
The Assad regime is one of the most brutal regimes we have in the entire world. And that is why I'm not convinced of a normalization of relations with the Assad regime. Well, we have to see that our policy approach towards Syria did not work as we wanted it to work. One of the reasons, by the way, is Russia for it and their influence and their support for Assad. And that is why I really believe we need to have negotiations in the European Union about a new approach for Syria now.
Max, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Welcome to Kurdistan and Erbil again, and hope to see you here more frequently.
It's very good to be in Erbil. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.